Hey folks, my name's Sheridan and I have opinions on this new Sahbabii project, Sahheem. Sahbabii is a 27-year-old rapper from Chicago that moved to Atlanta in his teens and released his debut project Sandas on SoundCloud in 2017. That project contained the song Pull Up With a Stick featuring Loso Loaded, which became a viral sensation and has acquired hundreds of millions of plays across all streaming services since then. He built on his success with 2018's Squidtastic that really honed in on his love for animals, especially sea creatures. It also contains the song Tonight, which while successful at the time, has blown up even more since then after a surge on TikTok thanks to a number of trends, including these hilarious Victorious edits that I've been totally addicted to. His love for animals and general unapologetic originality are both things that drew me to him as someone who really stands out in his own niche. Since then though, I've had mixed feelings about his recent releases as I don't feel like they've captured his persona as well as some of his earlier stuff did. Despite that, and the fact that I was completely unaware of this release until it actually came out, I went into this pretty optimistic, hoping that he could hone back in on the qualities that made him unique as a creative. Here's what I think. Sahbabii's two best records, Sandas and Squidtastic, both started with Don Juan intros. Since then, he's mostly abandoned that formula until now. The first two iterations of the Don Juan intro are skits/monologues, but while this new one feels a bit talky, there's still a significant backing track, and Sahbabii delivers a laid-back flow with some subtle rhymes before the rather short Don Juan monologue at the end. So since the first two don't actually provide anything musically and just act as vibe setters, this one is obviously my favorite, as it's able to accomplish both sonic appeal and is an effective intro. Sahbabii immediately turns things up with the second track, Viking. The hook is pretty catchy on this one despite being a little monotonous, but I'm a huge fan of the verses that are effective in adding the dynamics with both flow and energy switches. I would say he wastes no time in getting to the wild, funny bars that he's so well known for, but I don't even think he does this consciously. It's just who he is. Sahbabii's just naturally creative and built different lyrically. So while I don't think Viking's his most unique track ever, it's still dripping in his personality and goes over really well. The third song, Roll With Me, contains one of the catchiest melodies on this entire thing, and the production really knocks. Sahbabii's delivery is hilariously potent, flirting with a flow somewhat reminiscent to Young Thug's mid-career output, but also captures some of Young Nudi's aggressive energy. This one is clearly about ride or dies, and Sahbabii makes his position clear that you gotta have your people's back through the good and the bad, while scoffing at anybody trying to reap the benefits of his success without having been there to support him on the journey he took to reach this point. The section of the chorus where he says, BBL Rex, no Diddy, is hilarious, and the way he not only creates his own slang, but is also able to morph certain slang into having his own meaning should seriously be studied. The fourth song, Anaconda Livin', sees Baby returning to a classic flow of his that unfortunately many people have credited Gunna for. While I could totally picture this one being a Gunna song, I'm positive it would be even more dumbed down lyrically and mind-numbing sonically. Not to mention, animal references have always been Sahbabii's thing, so it's no surprise to see that trend continue on this song. The repetitive melody does its job to feel trancy and hypnotizing, but the verses honestly don't provide enough variation for me to be really crazy about this track. It really loses its appeal quite quickly, so while not a complete miss, I definitely think this is a weaker song on the track list. The fifth cut, All the Way, is a super fun bop that opens up with a really engaging verse that ends with the line, my hoe ass soft like a biscuit, which I just really love. Even though this one is short and sweet, it packs a major punch and is replayable in a number of circumstances. I think a lot of people can get behind the simple message of being unsatisfied with any outcome other than reaching the peak of whatever their pursuits are, and this song gets that across well without coming off as preachy. Somehow, he fits 3 verses into this 2.5-minute runtime, and in the third, he says something that really caught my ear. I influenced the influence. While I do think there's some real life truth to his footprint on the evolution of hip hop and most specifically trap being under-discussed and appreciated, that line would be cold as hell either way. I love that this one is both engaging topically and extremely danceable. Track 6, On Film, provides some of the most vibey production on this whole thing. Sahbabii also really leans into his vocal range on this one, hitting both the deeper voice he's implemented so frequently and the higher octave he's so well known for. I love the hook, and it somehow even effectively executes a subtle poop and pee bar without coming off as cringe, as it's instead just hilarious. I don't know if this will end up being one of Sahbabii's more memorable songs for me, but it's definitely one of the most playlistable for situations when you're playing music with friends that aren't necessarily interested in hearing anything other than the most generic trap and hip-hop. Next up we get Kodak, the 7th track on Sahheem. Unfortunately, this one does play off rapper Kodak Black's name within the hook, but thankfully has some pretty fun and engaging verses. I think the 2-minute runtime is a bit limited, but because I was so turned off by the tacky Kodak bar, I'm honestly cool with it, and Baby's energy was enough for me to not be disappointed completely that this one wasn't cut from the track list. Track 8, Belt Boys, is a deceiving one because it almost has 2 hooks. The initial flow Baby delivers is super tough and energetic, but the repetitive Belt Boys hook is honestly just corny and grating. I do love his ability to switch up his voice like that, but this part doesn't even sound like like him, in a bad way. Like sure, on one hand it's pretty impressive, but it's just so jarring in the context of this specific song. Despite the limited aspects I do like on this one, it's still the first miss of the project for me. Now approaching the halfway point of Sahbabii, track 9 Every Day opens up with a lively baby verse lightly referencing a romantic interest and their mutual attraction. This is followed up by a straight up euphoric high-pitched hook that is not only catchy, but also beautiful. It really provides a contrast to the more aggressive verses and is an example of Baby being able to provide both the substance and the vocal emotion. The second half of this record kicks off with the 10th track, Lost All My Feelings, which I believe was the only single for Sahbabii. Listening to this cut, I can definitely see what the angle was here, as there's an inherent TikTok ability to it. In terms of actual quality though, I would say this is around middle of the pack for Sahbabii. I like the flow on the hook, and the verses are fine, but the production is honestly pretty boring, and that first Sun section is a bit difficult to listen to. I do still think the rest of this song is more than listenable, but overall it feels a bit undercooked and out of place for this record. Things definitely heat up when we get to the 11th cut, Stay Away From Trouble though. While this is no means the best on the track list, nor a wildly impressive Baby performance, the beat is insanely cold and reminds me of late 70s or early 80s horror movies, soap operas, and courtroom dramas. The repetitive hook isn't necessarily a draw, but it's not as annoying as it could be either, and honestly makes the track way easier to just fucking ride out to. The next song, Sylvan Road Riding Down Dill, is easily the best on the second half of the track list so far. The flows that Sahbabii unlocked on this one for both the hook and the verses are so infectious, and the subtle vocal sample used on the production is amazingly complimentary. He also somehow fits in a lot of his most hilariously bizarre lines on this one. For example, I'm not a Jew, but I Torah. Explore the hood, baby Dora. Those aside, this is definitely one of his most accessible songs ever if you just don't let the people you're playing it for listen to the lyrics too much. Sahbabii takes a more intimate approach with the 13th song, Mirror Pics, both topically and sonically. The content of the song should be pretty self-explanatory, but details the sexting experience without getting too specific about any one time, and more so comes off as just like a general celebration of being on the receiving end of sexy pictures from women. I don't really have much to analyze here, as that's pretty much the entirety of the content, so like, I guess good job at being so horny all the time, Sahbabii. Track 14, Wakiki, ever so slightly ups the energy from the last song, but still acts as a melodic and bubbly experience. The whimsical production is really fun and complements Baby's addictively bouncy flow. I do think it would have been a bit more fun for Sahbabii to approach this one with a bit more thematic intention, but it's a blast either way. The 15th cut, 1095 Osborne Street, is a muddy but heartfelt ballad that in the first verse addresses his tumultuous love life or lack thereof, and draws parallels to his inability or unwillingness to connect with not only the life he grew up in, but also the mindset he feels he needs to maintain to help him achieve the heights he's aiming for. The bridge leading to the second verse finds him singing, "It's a long time, but I'm on fire," which is clearly in reference to his gradual rise within the industry, but conversely can be interpreted more pessimistically to symbolize a feeling of everything crashing and burning. In the second verse, he reminisces on the tough times he had to grind out of to escape and makes clear his intention to defend his spot at all costs. I love how sincere this one feels, and think it provides a necessary balance to this one, both topically and sonically. Approaching the end of the record, the 16th song, Bye, is a little goofy and honestly pretty disjointed. I don't think the hook is catchy at all, and there are only a couple exciting moments flow-wise. I do think the beat is actually pretty cool, and nothing on this one is actually horrible, but I think it's one of the weakest cuts compared to the rest of the track list. Save It For Me Baby is the second to last song on this thing, and it finds Sahbabii returning to the intimate ballad approach that hasn't been scarce on this record so far, but definitely less common. I love the dreamy and cloudy spaced out production that provides a perfect atmosphere for Sahbabii's smooth and delicate delivery. The song is about flying either to a woman or back home where the woman is, and both being insatiably dedicated to seeing each other as soon as possible. This one is definitely for the freaky playlist for those who do that kind of thing. Me personally, I normally just play SpongeBob's Greatest Hits when I'm trying to get in the mood with my partner. Finally, the 18th and final track, Workin', is Sahbabii's admission of normalcy. This one is basically Baby saying, "Look y'all, I came from nothing just like everyone else. I've been through pain, lost people, and almost threw my life away. Now that I have the opportunity to escape those hardships for good and take care of my family, I'll do anything to protect that." From my perspective, it's a respectably honest song that does a decent job wrapping the record up, but definitely plays it pretty safe. Still, I appreciate Sahbabii for grounding himself here. So as someone who's been a Sahbabii fan since high school, I really wasn't sure what to expect going into this record. He hadn't released a great record since Squidtastic, and I didn't see any promo leading up to this new record. I'm really glad I caught it though, because while I think Sahim is ever so slightly bloated, Sahbabii does a great job for the large majority of this thing, not sacrificing topical focus or sonic appeal for the other. All that being said, I've got to give this thing at least an 8.10. Alright folks, another review down the hatch. As y'all can probably tell, I'm still very sick, I'm stuffed up, I don't feel good. So please like, comment, subscribe, it'll heal me. Hit the bell, that'll also heal me. Do those things, it'll heal me, make me feel good. Make me feel good, y'all. See ya.